Maya Chen sat in the back corner of advanced xenobiology, her notebook open but barely touched. While Professor Kellerman droned on about the reproductive cycles of Altarian moss creatures, her eyes tracked every movement in the lecture hall. The way Jacob shifted nervously when discussing predator-prey relationships, how Zara's breathing quickened during descriptions of hunting behaviors, the subtle tension in Commander Torres when he mentioned territorial disputes. Most students saw a shy human girl who rarely spoke above a whisper. They noticed her threadbare clothes, her habit of eating alone, and how she flinched whenever someone approached too quickly. What they didn't see was how her fingers unconsciously mapped exit routes, or how her seemingly wandering gaze cataloged every potential weapon within reach. The Galactic University of Kepler 442b prided itself on being the most prestigious institution in known space. Students from hundreds of species competed for admission. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most alien students viewed them as primitive curiosities, violent but ultimately harmless compared to the established powers. After class, Maya gathered her things slowly, waiting for the crowd to thin. She had learned that moving with groups drew attention, and attention was the last thing she wanted. As she headed toward the library, 3 Vorthon students blocked her path. Vorthons were apex predators from a high-gravity world, standing nearly 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and bioluminescent threat displays. They dominated most social hierarchies. The leader, Kextar, had made it clear from day one that he considered humans beneath notice. "Little human," Kextar's translator rendered his growls into universal standard. "You will complete my molecular chemistry assignment, due tomorrow." Maya kept her eyes down, her voice barely audible. I have my own work to finish." Kextar's claws extended slightly, a clear threat display. His companions, Zilneth and Vordash, moved to flank her. Students in the corridor slowed their pace, sensing drama but unwilling to intervene. Interspecies conflicts were common enough, and humans were generally considered acceptable targets. "Perhaps you misunderstood." Kextar leaned closer, his breath hot against her face. "This was not a request." Maya's shoulders trembled slightly. She clutched her books tighter against her chest, the picture of a terrified young woman. "Please, I just want to go to the library." "After you agree to help your betters?" Vordash reached out to grab her arm. What happened next lasted less than 3 seconds. Maya dropped her books, her body moving with fluid precision. Her elbow connected with Vordash's solar plexus as she spun, driving the breath from his lungs. Kextar lunged forward, claws extended, but she was already inside his reach. Her palm strike to his throat sent him staggering backward, gasping. Zilneth had time to realize the situation had changed before Maya's knee found his diaphragm. As he doubled over, her forearm came down across the back of his neck, and he collapsed. The entire exchange was executed with surgical precision. No wasted motion, no unnecessary force. She had disabled 3 dangerous predators without seriously injuring any of them, a level of restraint that spoke to profound combat experience. Maya quickly gathered her scattered books, her hands shaking as if from shock rather than adrenaline. Students who had witnessed the encounter stood frozen, unsure of what they had seen. Had the quiet human girl really just neutralized 3 Vorthans in hand-to-hand combat? "I'm sorry," she whispered to the groaning aliens. "I didn't mean to. I just got scared." Before anyone could respond, she hurried away toward the library, leaving behind 3 of the university's most feared bullies struggling to catch their breath. Word spread quickly through the student body, but the story changed with each telling. Some claimed the Vorthons had simply slipped and fallen. Others insisted they had been jumped by a gang of humans. The truth seemed too improbable to believe. In her dormitory that night, Maya sat on her narrow bed, staring at a photograph hidden in her textbook. The image showed a younger version of herself in military fatigues, standing among a unit of hardened soldiers. Behind them, the smoking ruins of what had once been a Zarathi occupation facility. She had been 15 when the Zarathi invaded Earth. The spider-like aliens had expected easy conquest of a primitive world, but they had underestimated human adaptability and desperation. Maya had volunteered for the resistance at 16, lying about her age. By 18, she was leading deep penetration raids behind enemy lines. The war had lasted 7 years. When it finally ended, Earth's military had developed tactics that made other species nervous. Humans fought differently than anyone else, with creativity, ruthlessness, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. They used weapons their enemies considered dishonorable, attacked targets others deemed off-limits, and displayed a talent for psychological warfare that bordered on the supernatural. Maya had been one of their most effective operators. While Zarathi commanders searched for large military formations, she moved alone through their territory like a ghost. Supply convoys would simply disappear. Forward operating bases would go silent in the night. Command posts would be found empty except for detailed intelligence reports left behind as calling cards. The Zarathi had eventually given her a name in their language that translated roughly as the shadow that hunts. Intelligence reports described her as everything from a cybernetic supersoldier to a pack of trained killers working in coordination. They never suspected she was a single teenage girl with a talent for violence and a complete inability to quit. After the war, Earth's government had offered her medals, promotions, and a lifetime of comfortable assignments. Instead, she had requested transfer to the Galactic Exchange Program. She wanted to study, to learn about the universe beyond war and killing. The transition from elite commando to college student should have been simple. But Maya had discovered that some skills never fade. The hypervigilance that had kept her alive behind enemy lines made peaceful environments feel like elaborate traps. Her ability to read people's intentions from micro-expressions and body language turned every social interaction into a tactical assessment, and her instinctive response to threats remained the same as always: swift, decisive, and overwhelmingly violent. She had hoped that pretending to be helpless would prevent situations like the one with the Vorthons. If everyone saw her as weak and harmless, maybe she could actually be weak and harmless. Maybe she could learn to be the person she might have been if the war had never happened. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on her personal communicator. Maya opened it to find a brief note from Professor Kellerman. "Please see me in my office tomorrow morning. We need to discuss today's incident." Maya sighed and closed the device. She had hoped her cover story would hold, but Kellerman was ex-military himself. During the lecture, she had noticed the way he carried himself, the unconscious, tactical awareness in his movements. If anyone would recognize combat training when they saw it, it would be him. She looked again at the photograph, then carefully tucked it back between the pages of her xenobiology textbook. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to maintain her charade or trust someone with the truth. Either choice carried risks she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Outside her window, the lights of the campus sprawled across the valley like stars. Alien students from dozens of worlds pursued their studies in peace, preparing for careers in science, diplomacy, and commerce. They had never known war the way humans knew war. They had never been forced to choose between civilization and survival. Maya envied them that innocence, even as she remained ready to protect it, because somewhere in the galaxy, other threats were stirring. Other predators were watching and waiting for signs of weakness. And when they came, the quiet girl from Earth would be ready to remind them why humans were the most dangerous species they would ever encounter. The soft sounds of the dormitory settling into sleep surrounded her, but Maya's eyes remained open, watching the shadows and listening to the night. Some habits she reflected, were harder to break than others. Professor Kellerman's office occupied a corner of the xenobiology building, its windows overlooking the memorial gardens where students from various species honored their war dead. Maya knocked softly on the doorframe, noting the defensive positioning of his desk and the clear lines of sight to all entrances. Definitely military. "Come in, Miss Chen." Kellerman gestured to a chair across from his desk. He was human, perhaps 50 years old, with the controlled movements of someone who had seen combat. "Please, sit. Coffee?" Maya shook her head, settling into the chair with her back to the wall. "Professor, about yesterday. Yesterday, 3 Vorthans who outweigh you by a combined 600 pounds somehow ended up on the floor." Kellerman leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "The security footage is interesting. Would you like to see it?" Maya's stomach clenched. But she kept her expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean." Kellerman activated a holographic display above his desk. The footage showed the corridor incident in perfect clarity, Maya's devastating counterattack, the surgical precision of her movements, the way she controlled every aspect of the engagement while appearing terrified. Even knowing what to look for, the professor had to slow the recording to quarter speed to track her actual techniques. "Zilneth is still having trouble with his breathing," Kellerman observed. "Vordash has bruising consistent with a precise strike to his celiac plexus. And Kextar, well, let's just say he's speaking much more quietly these days." He paused the display. "That's some impressive work for a scared college girl." Maya remained silent, her hands folded in her lap. She had prepared several cover stories, but looking at Kellerman's knowing expression, she realized deception would be pointless. "Your academic records show standard Earth education, no military service, no formal combat training." Kellerman pulled up another display. "But your entrance essay mentioned spending time in refugee camps during the Zarathi occupation. That must have been difficult." "A lot of people had difficult experiences during the war," Maya said quietly. "True, but most of them didn't develop the ability to disable trained killers with their bare hands." Kellerman leaned forward. "I served with the 5th Expeditionary Force during the liberation of Kepler 186F. Saw plenty of combat against Zarathi forces. I know what their tactics looked like, and I know what it took to counter them." Maya felt a familiar tension building in her shoulders. Every instinct told her to assess threats, plan escape routes, prepare for violence. Instead, she forced herself to remain still. "What do you want, Professor?" "The truth, for starters." Kellerman closed the displays and focused on her directly. "Maya Chen, age 22, from the North American Agricultural Zone. Parents listed as deceased, killed during the early stages of the Zarathi occupation. But there's something interesting about your identification records. They were issued posthumously and then reactivated 3 years later." Maya's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "How did you—" "Because I helped issue similar records for other deep-cover operatives who needed clean identities after the war." Kellerman's voice carried a note of respect. "The question is, which unit were you with? Given your age and skill set, I'd guess either the Nightfall Division or the Ghost Protocol program." The names hit Maya like physical blows. Both units were classified beyond top secret, their very existence denied by Earth's government. If Kellerman knew about them, his security clearance was far higher than any university professor should possess. "I studied agricultural science," Maya said weakly. "I just want to learn about alien crop cultivation techniques." Kellerman smiled sadly. "I'm sure you do. But wanting a peaceful life doesn't change what you are. Any more than my tenure here changes what I am." He stood and moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Do you know why I teach xenobiology, Maya?" She didn't answer, but he continued anyway. Because understanding how alien species think, how they hunt, how they defend themselves, that knowledge might save human lives someday. The war with the Zarathi taught us that we're not the apex predators we thought we were. But it also taught us something else. He turned back to face her. When pushed to the brink, humans become something that even apex predators fear. Maya's carefully constructed persona was crumbling. She could feel the soldier underneath struggling to surface, drawn out by recognition and understanding. The war is over, Professor. Is it? Kellerman returned to his desk and activated another display. This one showed star charts with highlighted systems. Zarathi fleet movements in the Outer Rim, Vorthon territorial expansions, Krillian mining operations in neutral space. The hegemony grows stronger while the Galactic Council debates trade regulations. Maya studied the charts, her trained eye immediately recognizing the patterns. Staging areas, supply lines, probe attacks to test defenses. They're preparing for something. Several somethings, most likely. The galaxy's predator species see humanity's rapid advancement as a threat to their established order. Earth has developed too quickly, gained too much influence. There are factions that would prefer we were removed from the equation entirely. Maya felt cold certainty settling in her stomach. And you think they'll try to finish what the Zarathi started? I think they're already trying. Kellerman pulled up another file, casualty reports from human colonies in disputed territories. 17 settlements have gone silent in the past 6 months. The official explanation is equipment failures, natural disasters, communication breakdowns. But the pattern suggests coordinated attacks by forces using Zarathi infiltration tactics. Maya studied the data with professional interest, her academic pretenses finally falling away completely. The attack vectors, the timing, the systematic elimination of communication infrastructure, it all pointed to a carefully orchestrated campaign of extermination. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because Earth's military is still rebuilding from the last war. Most of our experienced special operations personnel are either dead or suffering from combat trauma. The few who remain active are spread thin across 100 different assignments." Kellerman met her eyes. "We need our best people in positions where they can gather intelligence and respond to threats. You want me to spy on my fellow students? I want you to do what you do best. Hunt." Kellerman's expression was grave. "Because make no mistake, Maya, they're hunting us. And when they make their move, the galaxy is going to learn why humans are the most dangerous species that ever evolved." Maya stood slowly, her mind racing through implications and possibilities. She had come to the university to escape her past, to find some measure of peace after years of violence. Instead, she was being asked to embrace that past, to become once again the weapon she had tried so hard to leave behind. "What about my studies? My life here?" "Continue exactly as you have been. Maintain your cover as a quiet, harmless student. But watch. Listen. And when the time comes..." Kellerman opened a desk drawer and removed a small device that Maya recognized as a military-grade communication array. "Remember that some skills are too valuable to waste." Maya took the device, feeling its familiar weight in her palm. Such a small thing, but it represented a return to a world she had hoped never to see again. A world of shadows and violence, where trust was a luxury and peace was just another word for preparation time. "There's something else," Kellerman said quietly. "The Vorthans you encountered yesterday, they weren't acting on their own initiative. Kextar's family has deep connections to the Hegemony War faction. His presence here might not be coincidental." Maya felt her predator instincts sharpening, the familiar rush of the hunt beginning to course through her veins. She had spent 3 years trying to suppress those instincts, to pretend she was just another student pursuing an education. But if Kellerman was right, if the war was beginning again, then her pretense of weakness might be the perfect cover for gathering intelligence. "How many others are there?" she asked. How many of us are in positions like this? Kellerman's smile was grim. Enough. Scattered across the galaxy in universities, research stations, diplomatic missions, commercial ventures, all of them maintaining cover identities, all of them waiting for activation. Maya nodded slowly, understanding the scope of the operation. Earth's government had learned from the Zarathi invasion. Instead of waiting for threats to develop, they were positioning assets to detect and counter them before they could mature. The quiet girl on campus was just one node in a vast network of human operatives. "What's my mission priority?" she asked, her voice taking on the clipped professionalism she had thought buried forever. "Integration and observation. Learn everything you can about non-human military capabilities, political structures, and cultural weaknesses. Build relationships that can be exploited later. And most importantly, identify potential threats before they become active." Maya tucked the communication device into her jacket pocket, feeling it settle against her ribs like a familiar companion. "And if I encounter active threats?" Kellerman's expression grew cold. "Do what you were trained to do. Protect human interests by any means necessary." Maya left the professor's office with her mind churning. The peaceful campus suddenly looked different to her trained eye. Not a sanctuary of learning, but a battlefield where information was the primary weapon and every interaction carried strategic importance. Her fellow students, aliens from dozens of worlds, were no longer just classmates but potential sources of intelligence or targets for elimination. The Vorthens who had threatened her were enemy agents whose connections needed to be mapped and exploited. Even her human classmates became resources to be protected or security risks to be monitored. As she walked across the quad toward her dormitory, Maya caught herself automatically cataloging defensive positions and escape routes. The habits of war were reasserting themselves with frightening ease, as if the past 3 years of attempted normalcy had been nothing more than an extended reconnaissance mission. That night, as she stared out her window at the alien stars, Maya activated the communication device for the first time. A single encrypted message waited for her, containing coordinates and a recognition phrase. Somewhere else on campus, another operative was waiting to make contact. The quiet girl was gone. In her place stood something far more dangerous. A hunter who had learned to hide in plain sight, ready to protect humanity from threats both known and undiscovered. The galaxy's predators had made a critical error in believing that humans could be easily eliminated. They were about to learn why Earth's children were the most dangerous prey they could have chosen to stalk. 2 weeks after her conversation with Professor Kellerman, Maya had identified 17 potential intelligence assets and 3 confirmed enemy operatives on campus. The recognition phrase from her encrypted message had led her to Dr. Sarah Voss, a human linguistics professor who specialized in hegemony battle languages. Together, they had begun mapping the complex web of alliances and enmities that existed beneath the university's peaceful facade. Maya maintained her cover as the quiet, nervous student, but her nights were spent in a different role entirely. Using skills honed during years of warfare, she moved through the campus like a ghost, placing surveillance devices, copying encrypted communications, and building detailed psychological profiles of every non-human student who might pose a threat. The Vorthons had proven especially valuable sources of intelligence. Kextar's humiliation had made him careless, and his private communications revealed a network of hegemony sympathizers spread across multiple star systems. They believed humans were a temporary aberration that needed to be eliminated before Earth could establish permanent footing in galactic affairs. What they didn't know was that every message they sent was being intercepted and analyzed by a network of human operatives who had learned the art of invisible warfare from the most vicious teachers imaginable. Tonight was different, though. Maya crouched in the shadows of the xenobiology building, watching a meeting that wasn't supposed to be happening. 12 aliens from 6 different species, all gathered in Professor Kellerman's laboratory after hours. The energy signatures from inside indicated they were using military-grade communication equipment. Maya's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversation in multiple languages, but the universal translator in her ear painted a clear picture. They were discussing human elimination strategies, comparing notes on Earth's military capabilities, and planning coordinated strikes against human colonies in the Outer Rim. What made the situation truly dangerous was that these weren't just students expressing xenophobic opinions. The Krillian representative was a confirmed intelligence officer. The Altarian delegation included 2 individuals with documented ties to military research programs. And the Vorthon contingent was led by someone Maya recognized from classified war crimes reports, a strategist who had helped plan the initial Zarathi invasion of Earth. Maya activated her communication device and sent a priority alert to Dr. Voss. Within minutes, she received confirmation that similar meetings were taking place on 17 different campuses across the galaxy. The enemy wasn't just preparing for war, they were already conducting it, using universities as cover for intelligence operations and recruitment centers for sympathetic aliens. The meeting inside was concluding. Maya melted back into deeper shadows as the participants began to emerge. She photographed each face, recorded their biosignatures, and tracked their movements as they dispersed across the campus. 3 headed toward the communication center, likely to send reports to their handlers. 4 returned to dormitories where they would continue planning. The remaining 5 moved toward the restricted sections of the research complex. Maya made a decision that would have consequences far beyond the quiet campus. Instead of simply observing and reporting, she chose to act. The first target was Zekthara, the Krillian intelligence officer. Maya intercepted him in a service corridor between buildings, using a neural disruptor to render him unconscious before he could raise an alarm. A quick search revealed encrypted data storage devices and a list of human operatives marked for elimination. Her own name was at the top of the list, along with Dr. Voss and 13 other covers that had apparently been compromised. The second target required more finesse. Veltanus, the Altarian military researcher, was heading toward the quantum physics laboratory where sensitive research was conducted on faster-than-light communication technology. Maya shadowed him through 3 security checkpoints, noting how easily he bypassed systems that should have been impenetrable. When Veltanus began downloading classified research data, Maya struck. The Altarian was larger and stronger than she was, but he had never encountered human close-quarters combat techniques. Within seconds, he was unconscious, his stolen data recovered, and his access codes extracted through methods that would have made Earth's interrogation specialists proud. The remaining targets proved more challenging. They moved as a coordinated unit toward the university's central communications array, clearly intending to transmit intelligence to their handlers before disappearing into the wider galaxy. Maya realized she was facing a coordinated exfiltration. They knew their operation had been detected and were attempting to salvage what they could before vanishing. Maya sent another priority message to Dr. Voss. Package compromised. Initiating containment protocol. The response came back immediately. Confirmed. Full activation authorized. Show them who we are. Maya felt a familiar chill run down her spine. Full activation meant the end of pretense, the complete abandonment of her cover identity. It meant revealing to the galaxy exactly what humans became when their survival was threatened. She activated dormant subroutines in her communication device, sending coded signals to human operatives across the campus. Within minutes, the university's communication systems experienced a series of apparently random failures. Transportation networks suffered mysterious glitches. Security systems began reporting false alarms throughout the facility. The enemy operatives found themselves cut off from external contact and trapped in an environment that was rapidly becoming hostile. Maya smiled grimly as she watched them attempt to adapt to changing circumstances. They were skilled intelligence professionals, but they had trained for conventional warfare against predictable opponents. They had never faced humans. Maya moved through the darkened campus like the predator she had always been, systematically dismantling the enemy network. She didn't kill. That would have created too many questions. Instead, she captured, interrogated, and extracted every piece of intelligence they possessed before rendering them unconscious and arranging for their discovery by campus security. By dawn, 12 alien operatives had been exposed as spies and saboteurs. Their hidden weapons were discovered, their encrypted communications revealed, and their plans for coordinated attacks on human colonies laid bare for galactic authorities to examine. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. But the real message wasn't in what had been discovered. It was in how quickly and efficiently the operation had been dismantled. The galaxy's intelligence services would study the events at the university and reach uncomfortable conclusions about human capabilities. They would realize that Earth's agents had penetrated their most secure networks, anticipated their strategies, and neutralized their operations with surgical precision. Maya stood in Professor Kellerman's office as news reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Similar operations had been exposed simultaneously on dozens of worlds. The coordinated nature of the revelations sent shockwaves through the galactic intelligence community. Earth hadn't just detected one conspiracy. They had detected all of them, monitored them for months, and then destroyed them in a single coordinated strike. "How many operatives do we actually have out there?" Maya asked. Kellerman smiled grimly. "Enough. The galaxy's predator species made a fundamental error in their assessment of human nature. They assumed we would react to threats the way they would, with direct confrontation and overwhelming force." He pulled up a galactic map showing the scope of the night's operations. "Instead, we did what humans do best. We adapted, we learned, and we turned their own strategies against them." Maya studied the map, noting the scope and precision of the coordinated strikes. This was planned from the beginning, wasn't it? The whole university program, the student exchanges, the cultural integration initiatives. It was all intelligence gathering. Among other things, Earth's leadership learned from the Zarathi invasion that we can't afford to wait for threats to develop. We need to identify and neutralize them while they're still forming. Kellerman's expression grew serious. "But last night changed everything. We've shown our hand, revealed capabilities that we've kept hidden for years. The galaxy now knows that humans are not the primitive species they believed us to be." Maya felt a mixture of pride and unease. The operation had been a complete success from a tactical standpoint, but the strategic implications were enormous. Earth had just announced to the galaxy that they possessed intelligence networks capable of penetrating any organization, monitoring any activity, and striking anywhere at will. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we see how the galaxy reacts to the knowledge that the quiet species from Sol has become its most dangerous predator." Kellerman stood and moved to the window, where campus security was still processing the captured operatives. "Some species will seek accommodation with us. Others will try to eliminate the threat we represent. And a few will attempt to learn from us." Maya joined him at the window, watching as her fellow students began to realize that their peaceful academic environment had been the site of the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. Humans would no longer be seen as harmless primitives struggling to find their place among advanced civilizations. Instead, they would be recognized for what they truly were: apex predators who had learned to hunt in the spaces between certainties. "Will there be war?" Maya asked. "There's already war. It just hasn't been formally declared yet." Kellerman's voice carried the weight of hard experience. "The question is whether it will be fought openly or in the shadows. Either way, The galaxy is going to learn something that the Zarathi learned too late. Humans are most dangerous when they appear weakest. Maya thought about her journey from terrified refugee to elite operative to quiet college student. Each role had been authentic in its own way, but all of them had served the same ultimate purpose: protecting humanity from those who would see them destroyed. The quiet girl on campus had been the perfect cover for the most merciless hunter in known space. As she prepared to leave Kellerman's office and return to her dormitory, Maya realized that her war had never really ended. It had simply evolved, becoming more subtle and more devastating. The galaxy's predator species had spent years planning humanity's destruction, believing they held all the advantages. They were about to discover their mistake. Maya walked across the campus quad one final time as the quiet, nervous student. Tomorrow, she would receive new orders, a new identity, and a new mission. The girl who had flinched at loud noises and avoided eye contact would disappear, replaced by whatever role Earth's intelligence apparatus required. But somewhere in the galaxy's dark spaces, threats to humanity were already adapting to the new reality. They would become more careful, more sophisticated, more dangerous, and when they emerged from hiding, they would find that humans had adapted as well. The shadow that hunts never rested, never stopped learning, and never forgot that the price of human survival was eternal vigilance against those who would see them destroyed. The quiet girl had served her purpose, but the hunter she concealed would endure for as long as humanity faced enemies among the stars. Maya smiled as she entered her dormitory, already anticipating the challenges ahead. The galaxy had no idea what it had awakened when it chose to threaten the children of Earth, but they were going to learn, one eliminated threat at a time, why humans were the apex predators that even apex predators feared to face.